This is the North Wind. He's the leader of the men-only nation whose only goal is to make sure he recaptures the kingdom of women for unlimited rice cake smashing. And now his dream looks like it's about to be fulfilled, as the top brass of the kingdom of women have found out the boys have an overpowered secret weapon that can make any Crimson Fox instantly lose their mind and their senses. Regardless, with news that imminent danger looms over the horizon, the Supreme Commander, Ada Marin, orders all the girls stationed at the border to turn on and activate their eagle eyes. She then slams her hand on the table, telling Seoli she also has something planned for her squad, as the Delta forces will not be partaking in the defensive operations. Marin then scolds her for not only letting the king Simp escape from the Gomage, but she's also responsible for the Crimson Foxes losing their first sword in Ara. Instead, Marin tasks the Silver Beauty to do everything in her power to make sure she destroys the Black Wolves' poisonous fog. As with it, there's not much they can do to counter the boys. So without any hesitation, Seoli takes it upon herself to channel her best SpongeBob imitation and goes I, Captain. Elsewhere, the girls tasked to defend the outskirts of the nation start to get scared as ominous fog begins to roll in during the night. Now coupled with urgent news that the Crimson Foxes have dispatched the reserves to reinforce them, the girls are more anxious than ever, as they can't believe that the Black Wolves really are trying to invade their homelands. Suddenly, one of the squad captains notices a billion lights pop up from some torches just a few yards out. Unfortunately, she doesn't think much of it, as she thought it's just a bunch of her own scouts. However, it finally dawned on her that it's way too many lights just for her own scouting group. Eventually, she realizes she screwed up for staring too long, as she's forced to watch a bunch of fire arrows illuminate the night sky. Luckily, these girls don't skip leg day, so a majority of them were able to raise some gigantic shields on top of them in an attempt to block the Fire Nation from hitting their target. Shortly after, the girls were finally able to sound their alarms, alerting the rest of the city that they are fully under attack. But just like the Boston Celtics, they were too late to extinguish the Miami Heat. Now here's the thing, right? Normal fire arrows don't really do much if you can successfully block them. But here's the problem for the girls: those arrows weren't just any normal ones, as they shortly discovered that each one had some fireworks ready to blow. And within just a few seconds, those stationed on top of the walls found out what's it really like during celebrations on Independence Day, and let's just say their experience was the bomb. Initially, the girls thought it was some kind of smokescreen exploding, but then the Susibaka army arrived to show them a true lesson. Mere seconds later, every single girl began to fall to the ground, unable to handle what the heck is happening, as their papayas seemed to be more active than usual. Nonetheless, as the secret weapon gets unveiled, the Black Wolves' Delta Force show up near the wall, spearheaded by the one and only Ninja Turtle himself. With Eden being gone for a very long time since he wasn't invited to the Gomage due to Blondie being on guard that day, he was the only elite Garimbi left behind without a rice cake smashing partner on the fateful day. So now our fat boy is the strongest person in the Black Wolves' Delta Forces, and he's still totally down to destroy the kingdom of women. As such, he's the first one up the walls of the city, still looking like he's been eating a lot of McDonald's every day and hasn't stopped since. However, upon smoothly landing on top of the walls, we finally get to see his eyes open as Bro starts to look around a little bit disgruntled. Meanwhile, the Crimson Foxes all look like they want to remove all their armor due to the Florida heat, unable to stand guard even with the wolves right in front of them. A grandma then appears, who happens to be the general of the city, but she looks totally unaffected, so she pieces 1 and 1 together to equal 11 and realizes that the wolves' secret weapon barely has an effect on the oldies. But then, like an absolute menace to society, Eden became Miley Cyrus and turned on his wrecking ball and decided to clip the grandma in charge without any hesitation. He then proceeded to take his weapon back from his target and without any remorse started leveling up his experience by finishing off everyone else, as Bro wasted no time as he really wanted to play Diablo 4 on release. After leveling up his dark phase, a couple more Black Wolves Delta forces poured in behind to follow him, all calling him to lead the way as the new first sword. However, Mr. Ninja Turtle scoffs at his underlings and orders them to stop calling him the first sword, but the boys clap back and tell him that no matter what, he's officially head of the Delta forces, with the rest of the elite Garimbi missing. Nevertheless, out in the courtyard, another squad captain urgently commands for someone to release the carrier pigeons and to retreat orderly, as they are basically facing impossible odds. Unfortunately for the Crimson Foxes still trapped within the city, their front gates begin to be breached as some Black Wolves have overtaken the gate controls. With the gate slowly opening up, some dude looking like a jacked Roo from Despicable Me readies a flare to indicate that it's time for them to charge in. He then yoinks the flare straight up into the sky, turning the darkness into morning in an instant, but the girls could only watch on confused. Now with the night sky totally illuminated, the girls start hearing some rumbling from a distance, but it only gets louder and louder as dark specks from afar begin to close in on them. Eventually, the entire army of men come crashing through the front gates with shields in hand, ready to take down any Crimson Fox, as most of these guys are extra virgin olive oil bottles ready to rumble. And so the first all-out battle begins inside the territory of the Crimson Foxes, but surprisingly, not a single girl dares to run away, which showcases their true Chadness in them. Instead of running away, the girls charge forward like a bunch of Amazonian girls ready to smash some brain-damaged wolves, even while knowing their advance is absolutely futile due to being totally outnumbered and without any reinforcements. Unfortunately for these brave heroes, the boys decide to be a bunch of woozies, and instead of taking them on with numbers greater than 20-1, they instead pull out their secret weapon. And just within a blink of an eye, all the Crimson Foxes within range fall to the ground, as they can't help but be overrun by their papayas thinking for them. After seeing their opponents fall down, the wolves rush forward gleefully, as these guys ain't no men, so they start leveling up their experience one by one, but some decide to tie up some foxes to take home as a prize. Luckily, these menaces to society get too overconfident, so they end up getting ganked by a bunch of old chads totally unaffected by their secret weapon. Now it's no wonder the Kingdom of Men was previously clapped by the women, since even the grandmas can single-handedly destroy a bunch of black wolves in their prime. So with a bunch of grandmas charging forward like true men, most of the front line of the black wolves get absolutely decimated, while some begin to run as they are afraid of planet Uranus closing in on them. And with every minute passing, the Crimson Foxes slowly make headway against the evil forces, all thanks to the ones that bake us cookies all the time. Elsewhere, Harang continues to carry the goddess Ara deep within the legendary Gurudrum depths, hoping to find an exit, but these two have been wandering around for ages. However, while traversing through the impossible terrain, more and more ominous purple glows start to shadow and follow Harang unbeknownst to him. Eventually, he loses his voice while trying to talk to an unconscious Ara due to him constantly talking to an unconscious Ara, but at the same time, Harang doesn't notice the purple aura has gotten real close behind them. Suddenly, Ara wakes up after getting jolted awake from the purple spirit entering her body, almost as if she's been taken over by a mysterious entity. Eventually, Harang notices some incomprehensible whispers stemming from Ara, so he turns around only to discover his queen has transformed into an otherworldly being. He then falls down after getting jump-scared from playing too much Outlast Trials, but Ara begins to cosplay a cowboy and aggressively straddles the horse in front of her. Mere seconds later, she starts to be engulfed by some kind of purple flame, looking like she just came out from the Dragon Ball Z universe, whilst totally keeping silent while on top of Harang. Our boy then begins to think he's hallucinating for being inside the danger zone of Mount Gurudrum for too long, so he attempts to figure out what he can do to go back to his senses. Unfortunately for Harang, he isn't hallucinating at all, so out of nowhere, he starts feeling something holding down his arms to the ground, looking like some kind of hairy octopus weapon you totally see in some very sussy anime. We then turn into Sussy Street as Ara starts to attack Harang all over, while she simultaneously holds onto his banana tree plantation like Gorilla Glue. Things then get even more intense as she starts to pour invisibility potions on her armor, looking like she's ready to partake in some rice cake smashing. Anyways, after successfully disarming her full suit of armor using some potions, she starts staring at Harang, with her twin pyramids of Giza joining in on the stare. Eventually, our boy starts to glow like a Ra, due to the mystical goddess going ham on his banana tree plantation to make sure it's fully grown and ready to endure. And much to Harang's surprise, she turns his banana tree plantation into a banana milkshake and drains it like an expert by drinking it whole. Eventually, he explodes unannounced, allowing both him and Ara to go back to their senses, but his sudden action has led to him getting clapped in the face in the aftermath. Regardless, he makes an excuse that he exploded abruptly, all due to him being so lonely and bored all this time, but he's glad he's finally erupted the volcano. Anyways, the two lovebirds end up finding some saving grace by finding a random patch of grass and with a small crack inside the rocks, so they decided to check it out. Upon further investigation, they realize there's more patches of grass within the insides of the rock, so they decide to take a breather inside as it's way warmer within the crack instead of outside.